Basketball.
It's time to strap in and get ready. The Insight NBA team is in the arena, bringing you the ultimate play-by-play on who's hot and who's not to help you win your leagues and dominate your mates. You're now hooping with your hosts, Matty G, Skiddy, and Malley for the Insight NBA show.
G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast. I am your host, Skiddy IFS, and today we are going to be previewing the 2 years ago champions, the Denver Nuggets, and I'm here with my main man, the man with the best mo going around in the NBA fantasy community. Malley, how are you, mate?
Mate, I feel a bit upset that you've just limited me to the Insight fantasy community. There's a big wide universe out there for me to dominate.
I saw I caught myself up when I was getting stuck into it, and I went, no. You're right. The fantasy basketball community, best mo in that. I'll give you hats off to that.
Thanks, mate. I'll take that. I'll take what I can get.
Oh, beauty, mate. Well, as I said today in the intro, we are previewing the Denver Nuggets today, and we have a little bit to get through. Now, Nuggets may not be the most fantasy exciting team, but they do have the big man in the middle, and that's Nikola Jokic. And I think there's going to be a couple of little bits and pieces that we're going to be able to talk about today that may get you a little bit excited, whether you take him one, whether you take him two. But if you do want a bit more of a solid grounding on where we would take him and what else we would do, you should go ahead and click the link in the description for the Patreon, and that is our big draft day kit. You get 220 plus players of player analysis. You get every little bits and pieces that me, Malley, Matrix, and Matty G are all thinking. You get every little piece of information that is all grouped into one area. And that is an absolute blessing in disguise when you're going on draft day, trying to find every piece of information when you need to make your next pick. Am I right or am I wrong with that, Malley?
100%, mate. If there's something in there you can't find, then you don't need to know it. And if there's something in there you can't find and you want to know, tell us and we'll add it in next year. But, mate, there's everything in there besides player eye colour. So unless you're trying to get draft an entire team of blue-eyed basketball players, then I think everything else there that you need is going to be there.
That sounds like a good one to do for one of our draft day battles, I reckon. Picking someone with the preferred eye colour, but how do we figure that out is the question. But
yeah. That's
one thing that we always
territory, mate.
Yeah, 100%. But one thing that is not
1945.
One thing that is not risky territory, Malley, and that is our day ones, the standard squeeze. And they have an IFS. They have a promo, IFS 15, and you can get 15% off any of your orders. That means these beautiful 4-in-1s that you always see me drinking out of. You can see the hats. You can see the squeeze bottle that's above my head up there. They're a beautiful product. We love them. Our day ones, they are the bomb. But, Malley, we can't sit here and keep blowing smoke up our own asses for the whole night. We're going to get stuck into the Denver Nuggets. And the Nuggets, they've made a couple of moves this year, Malley, but we may not be thinking that they're as big as they are, but there can be some sneaky value. If it's not on draft day, it's definitely streaming-wise.
Definitely. So looking at here, they've got rid of Reggie Jackson, and that must have freed up a bunch of locker space. Imagine all the room that bloke's just all his goggles and hats and bloody wristbands, toe bands, everything's gone. So they've got enough to move in about 5 other guys. Imagine the equipment manager. He must just be like breathing a sigh of relief on all the stuff that he doesn't have to organise for old Reggie.
You would think that too, but all that locker space is just going to be going to Russell Westbrook's ego. So it's just already sucked up because Russell Westbrook is now into this team.
It's all relative. And I don't have much to say on the Russell Westbrook thing. I guess he's looking at potentially a bigger role than he had last year. It'll be interesting to see if they keep him on the bench for long, whether they try and move him into the starting lineup, whether he's coming off the bench but essentially playing a starter's role. He's a guy that I used to love watching. Like, he's an amazing athlete. And, like, to think of what he could do in OKC, if you were playing fantasy basketball around that time, you couldn't be without him on your team. But it's one of those things, it's that old saying, like, you don't want to stick around long enough to see the hero become the villain. And I feel like that's kind of where he's at now. I just want the guy to retire. Like, let us all have the sweet taste in our mouth, mate. Like, don't keep going out there and wrecking it. But anyway, from a fantasy point of view, let's see what he does.
Yeah. I love that take that you said that he could be like the first man off the bench. And I think that there is a possibility where they could run, Westbrook playing a bit more of a ball dominant role and Jamal Murray being the off ball kind of 3-point specialist, bailout shot if need be. It's just that they need probably a bit more defense in that lineup if they are going to roll it. We're not going to be trusting DeAndre Jordan or anything like that at the center, or even Peyton Watson's good, but he's still a bit young and raw with it. So, but yeah, you need that defensive kind of guard there. And now that they've lost their main defensive guard in KCP to Orlando, yeah, it's kind of going a little bit thin now because he's probably the guy that's going to have to step up into his place.
It sounds like they're not really keen to win this year. Like, I don't know, that might be a bit unfair, and I'm going to get some hate from some Nugget supporters. One of my good mates is a Nuggets man, so I'm sure if he's listening to this, he'll be a bit upset. But I really like the Dario Saric pickup. I kind of feel when I think about Dario Saric, I think about babushka dolls. The little one goes inside the next smaller one, and I think of it being like Nikola Jokic, and then inside Nikola Jokic is Şengün, and inside Şengün is Dario Saric. So he's 2 evolutions shy of becoming a Jokic, but I like that. Yeah. I think when Jokic sits, we know how much trouble Nuggets get into, like the whole system just falls apart. But I reckon with Dario out there, they've got a guy who can play a similar system. He's a man who, he doesn't exactly body people up, but so he's not got the girth that old Joker does, but he's going to do Joker things, and I think he's going to hold his own while Joker gets his rest and then comes back on. But I think from a fantasy perspective, I thought he was not too bad as a waiver pickup. He was a guy I went to a lot when he was in Golden State. He's a guy who can get you some efficient points. He got a couple of rebounds. He'd have nights where he'd have weird like steals burst, not a big blocks guy. But I'm actually not too I'm not going to draft him. Even in my 20-man league, I think that's just he's too far off. But he's a guy that I'm definitely going to keep tabs on for my waiver pickups later on.
Agreed. If Jokic goes down, or even sometimes if Aaron Gordon goes down, he could be that next passing kind of guy off the bench. So I do agree with you there. But Malley, this is the way that we believe that the starting lineup for the Denver Nuggets is going to go this season, and that is with Jamal Murray at the 1. Christian Braun, we believe, will be taking the KCP role at the 2, which is mostly the thing that's being reported. Mr. I love every single time to shoot once I get my hands on the ball. Michael Porter Jr., massive green light. He'll be starting at the 3. Aaron Gordon for defensive purposes at the 4. And then obviously Nikola Jokic at the 5. Do you see any other way that the Nuggets could go with this starting lineup?
Only potentially trying to squeeze Russell in there and Christian. It's actually Christian Brown. I know we Aussies get it ruined all the time.
Yeah. I meant
faces the same way. So we just see that and we see Braun. But apparently, like, Brown's what he goes by. And fair enough. We barely had his name whispered last year. He only got a handful of minutes. We're going to talk in depth about, well, I am at least, going to talk in depth about him in a couple of minutes' time. So I won't float around too much. But no, in answer to your question, not particularly. Michael Porter Jr., he's got his role. Aaron Gordon, I always feel like I have it in my mind that Aaron Gordon's like in his late 30s and he's nowhere near as I think he is. Maybe just because he's been on this team for such a long time. And then Russell Westbrook playing that 6-man role. We'll also talk a bit about Jamal Murray. Obviously, he's probably got people sweating a little bit after his shite performance at the Olympics. And I think he's tumbled down my board. I don't know if you've had the same level of panic as I have, but I've moved him nearly 10 spaces. And it's less so that he's tumbled. It's more that there's people around him I've thought, you know what? When I'm thinking about their role, I'm starting to creep them up 1 or 2 spots. And then unfortunately, Jamal Murray's just kind of rolled down as a result. So
I can see that too, especially because Murray is so reliant on his points and good three-pointers and field goal percentage from a guard that is boosting him so highly. So if people do see that the shot performance, as I believe you said in the Olympics, then they obviously counted counters his fantasy value. So I can see why people are going that. I might drop him like maybe 1 or 2, but I'm not too overly concerned by it. We all know that once he gets back with the Joker, it's a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
And that's where we're rolling with that, mate. I think Porter Jr., you can have a crack at him, especially for threes. He's obviously going to get the threes. He can get some rebounds. Not much else in that aspect. Aaron Gordon's a really safe guy around the end of your draft. You can probably take him around the 130s and feel pretty comfortable about it because he just gets a little bit of everything. I think the rebounds are probably his best category that we can kind of hope to expect for. Maybe if the defensive stats rises, he's a bit more of a better player because his free throws can hurt. But the field goal's nice as well, playing dunker position for the Nugs. And then, that's kind of where I'm sitting with their starting lineup. It's not sexy, but that's what I'm rolling.
I think there's value in the lack of sexiness, Like I think this year, maybe more than ever, there's a lot of there's a lot of, guys I'll be taking maybe a riskier pick on thinking that they're going to pay off. And there'll be times where I have to temper my expectations and go, you know what, it's just time to pick up an Aaron Gordon or a Michael Porter Jr. Like I picked up someone in the pick before where I'm like, this could go really well. This could fall to pieces. Let's just go, play the safe game. And we know Michael Porter Jr.'s had injuries that have, stopped him playing for periods of time. Jamal Murray obviously has a bit of a checkered past when it comes to injuries. The last season, besides maybe Jamal, they didn't look too bad. And that leads me straight on to talking about the big man himself. It wasn't much of a difficult decision. Do you have a little noise to play for Top Gun before I start talking about him? Do you have to
mate, you tell me. I'm
what do you got, mate?
More than happy to give you this Top Gun. Yeah, that's our Top Gun, and that means obviously we're talking about the big man in the middle, and that is Nikola Jokic, Malley. 26 points a game last year, 12.4 rebounds, 9 assists, 1.13 3-pointers per game, almost a block, and then 1.4 steals. It's actually sneakily gone underneath everyone's expectations of him. He has good free throws, obviously, from the center position and great field goals. Talk to me. Are you having Jokic 1 or are you having Jokic 2 this season in your drafts?
I'm having him 2, and I mean, I'm a big Spurs guy, so there's probably a little bit of Homer appeal there for him for me, but I wouldn't be upset, and I don't think there's a wrong way to go there. Like, look at Nikola Jokic. He's been the same dude for the last 5 years. Like, I'm looking at his stats now. You can see him bobble up or down an assist, a point. The turnovers have been pretty shite for a long time. Actually, to be fair, this year weren't as bad as probably the last, 3 there. Is it 3.8 2 seasons ago and 3.6 the season before? So to be back down to 3, that's probably not too bad. To be nearly averaging a triple-double is super impressive. The thing about this guy is you pick him up in that first position and the world's your oyster for your second, fourth pick. He's someone who you don't really have to have a punt strategy around. I mean, I know there you've got down that he's obviously turnovers are a bit of a factor for him, and that's just to be expected. A guy who's got the ball in his hands this much, that's going to come with it. If you want to try and win turnovers, you better start drafting in the 80s or 90s instead of drafting the first pick, because there's no way to win that otherwise. And then that 3-pointers, he's still a big man who hits 3. So if you pick him up there, even though that's one of his deficiencies, if we had to find one in Jokic, you can still pick up a point guard with your second pick. You get a James Harden or something if you can pick him up. Might be hard to do with to get him at 24th or something like that. But getting one of these guys who's going to shore that up, and then you just sweet across the board. Like, it does give you so much flexibility about where you're going. Whereas if you go with what's his name, Wembanyama in the first position, he's got bigger deficiencies, but he's also got the blocks that are so impressive that we won't go as far to say it's going to win you the category week in and week out, but it's going to be something you're not going to have to worry about. Yeah.
No, that's 100% right. And the way that I keep bringing it down to is, what am I finding more value with that, at that point in the draft, to be able to then go into my next picks? Am I more concerned about Wemby's blocks that he's able to bring, the big block numbers, or is it against Jokic's assists? They're the two that I'm kind of just balancing the guys out because I think they can both get around the 20 to 23 points per game. They can both have nice rebounds. I think Jokic's assists are obviously going to be higher, but that's why Wemby's blocks are going to be higher. And I think the steals can be roughly around the same with percentages roughly around the same also. That's why I'm just giving Wemby the bit more of the nod because I don't think there's a point now where Jokic is going to come out and get these, 20 assist games or anything like that. Yes, he has the ability to 100%, but I think I'm feeling more confident with Wemby's ability to get his blocks and his steals higher than I am Jokic getting the super large assists. But as you said, I think you're bang on the money when you said, I don't think there's a bad way to go, either Wemby one or Jokic one. I think either way you're going to be able to pivot. And if you get one of those top two picks out of your draft and they take one of them and you get the other one, you're still going to be sitting pretty at two.
Exactly right. And if you like a sample space, if you like to be able to see what someone's done over the last 5 years and try and, align the numbers, clearly Wemby's your man because, not Wemby, clearly Jokic is your man because you've got that information. You've got it all laid out in front of you. You can see that this guy, look at his past seasons, his past 5. He's got 73 games, 72 games, 74 games, 69 games, 79 games. You want to pick someone in that first round that is going to play. It's no good you're clearly not going to get Kristaps. But if Kristaps wasn't injured and you were picking him at 14th or something, just after the turn, there's just no safety in that, you're going to be sweating the whole season thinking, is this going to be the game that I lose him for 3 weeks? Injuries can strike anyone, but, if you've got to go with the numbers, you've got to go with what's in front of you. And I see a player who plays.
Yeah. I love that. I could not agree there more. The only thing I'm going to also bring up about Jokic is I'm a little worried in the fact that since KCP is now gone and their defensive stocks have now definitely decreased, they're going to have to rely a lot more on Aaron Gordon to be able to stop and then Jokic as well. So I think that teams might be able to slow Jokic down a little bit more. We haven't seen him be able to do that, but it could be possible because of how much time they're going to actually have to put into him to do everything now this season without KCP on the defensive end. But Malley, we're going to get stuck into who we think is going to ready to rise. But also, too, we have to tell you guys about Ryan from Astute Newstead. And you use that promo code INSIGHT, and he will help you with all your home loan needs, whether you need refinancing, you're trying to buy your first home. He helped me buy my first home. He's an absolute gem. You can talk to him at any time about any question, no matter how big or small. But he is an absolute wizard when it comes to this kind of home loan refinancing kind of business. So give him a call. The link will be in the description, and you can get stuck into one of those ones. But Malley?
Pure sacrilege too, mate. You saying that I got the best mustache in the game, and I'm looking at that mustache. That man has a fine mustache. Look at that.
It is pretty bloody nice.
Amazing.
I'll give him credit on that. But yeah, it's close to yours, but it's just not quite there. I'm going to have to get my beard shaved off just so I can enter the race again. But that leads us to our ready to rise.
Your opportunity.
I always forget how goddamn loud that comes in, but that's all right. Speaking of loud, this man, Christian Brown from the Denver Nuggets. I really hate saying Brown because it is not Brown, but he's an NBA champion, so I'm going to have to respect that it's Brown, not Braun. Now, look, a couple of our other ready to rise guys have been guys that have been somewhat solidified that we think is able to step up into a new position for how they're going to go in fantasy this year. Christian Brown is now a little bit of an unknown, but we believe he's going to get the starting lineup into the starting lineup in Denver. And as you can see, the numbers here on the screen: 7.3 points, 2.4 rebounds, 0.8 assists, 0.5 steals, 0.4 blocks. Now, that is in limited minutes off the bench last season because he had KCP, he had Michael Porter Jr., he had DeMar Murray in front of him. With an increased role in this Denver Nuggets team and him needing to be able to play more minutes and get more defensive time, especially Malley, I can see these defensive numbers being the key to him being fantasy relevant this season.
Exactly right. He wasn't asked to do a lot last season, but we can see potential in him. He's the 21st pick of the 22 draft class. So they've seen value in him. And because they're out winning rings, they haven't really had to unleash him or really give him much of an opportunity on the court. I feel like it's very clear that he's going to take the lion's share of KCP's bequeathed minutes. So KCP left and said, "Here, I'd like to give you the gift of all my minutes. Like, please use them wisely."
Here's my problem.
Yeah, exactly right. See you, buds. But yeah, looking here too, like, yeah, that 20-minute average, that's definitely going to go up. Like, at absolute minimum, you can add 7 minutes to that. Whether he has to kind of minute share a little bit with Russ or whether they roll them out together, I'm not too sure. But I'd say you're looking at a starting 6-man, like that's essentially what I see in Christian Brown. But yeah, I think he's an exciting guy to watch, someone who is 38% on threes. Like, he's not afraid to shoot them and he hits them. He was putting up 2 a game. The free throws are a bit trash, but I think much like KCP, he's never going to get to the line anyway. Like, that's just not where he's going to end up. Like, to be able to get a few rebounds and a few assists on top of that, like, not much in the way of defensive numbers. But yeah, I think if you can get a guy, if you can get him and he puts up maybe 13, 14 points, he keeps those 3-pointers coming in nice and thick and heavy. He's getting you field goals at 46%. That's where he was there, 49 the season before. I mean, obviously that's going to go down because he's going to be in the starting unit and there's going to be more expected of him offensively. But yeah, a handful of rebounds, a handful of assists. Oh, why not take him as a late flyer?
Yeah. So I'm going to drop some numbers here for you, Malley. He also, too, he is actually a fairly good cutter and he does it pretty well off of Jokic, but I've noticed it's only off of Jokic. He doesn't do it with everyone else. So he does need to get the free throw percentage up, but it's also not too bad. But so in the last 2 weeks of the season last year, right, he was averaging 27 minutes a night. He averaged almost 10 points per game, almost 5 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 1.4 threes, almost a steal, and then a half a block on okay percentages, needed to be a little bit better. That got him to the 139th ranked player during those last 2 weeks. But in the last week of the season, he was the 87th ranked player in the 4 games there. 13 points per game, 5 rebounds, 1.3 steals, 0.8 blocks at 52% from the field, 1.8 threes a game. Now, it's in a small sample size, but that was him when he was able to get a bulk more set of the minutes. I think we can even see close to 30 this year, Malley, for Christian Brown. And if he was getting around, like, even if everyone's having a crack at him really, really late in drafts, if he can give me top 100 return, I'm stoked with that. But I will preface this in saying that I believe that the key to Christian Brown this season will be steals and out of position blocks to be able to be fantasy relevant. If he doesn't get those, piss him off. He's just like every other shooting guard that's just in place of being there in a certain spot for a team. I don't care about that. But if he brings me defensive stats, I'm in.
The most interesting thing about Christian Brown is he looks like he's about 15, and I'm surprised he's allowed to play in a licensed venue. I'm surprised they're allowed to serve drinks while he's in the venue. Like, they just say, sorry, we're actually cutting all alcoholic beverages because Christian Brown's under the load. So
hey, you saw him at that championship parade where he had that bottle of champagne, just smacking it as an 18, 19-year-old. Play on, son. Play on.
He didn't care what mum thought.
Hey, he's a champion, man. It does not matter.
Yeah, that's right. The ring sings. Good on him.
That's right. But, Malley, we'll quickly get stuck into it because there's not much to go with the rest of these guys, but we will get stuck into the best of the rest.
You're simply the best.
The one quick one that I wanted to ask you as well, Malley. So the Denver Nuggets finished 57-25 last season. Do you reckon they're going over or under this?
I have them under. I put them at 54-28.
Okay.
So not a drastic decline, but I think that KCP did a lot for this team.
Oh yeah.
Not fantasy wise, where he did nearly nothing, but from a real life perspective, he was really like a cornerstone of this team, and I think they're going to struggle without him. I also don't think Russell Westbrook makes any team better. And he's not the number 1 guy. He's not the number 2 guy. He's not the number 3 guy. Like, he's probably the number 4 guy. So yes, let's lock me in on the record for 54-28.
Yeah, I'm just going to take an easy under. I'm not going to give an exact one because they still have Nikola Jokic, even though they are, I would agree with being worse, but they still have Jokic, and
Yes.
that can drastically change the whole team. So yeah, I'll stick with you on that as an easy under for them. But the best of the rest, guys, there's not many of them. We've already kind of covered off on the new acquisition of Dario Saric, being a guy that's able to probably play out of the play a bit out of the post. He's an okay playmaker for his size as well, which is bit underrated for him. But we have been having whispers about Peyton Watson, about his fantasy ability for a couple of years. We did see a little bit of it last season at certain points. He can do some things when he got the minutes to be able to show that off. But then also too, he had been somewhat disappointing in that way, but a guy that can get us those defensive stats at the points that he can. He was averaging 2.5 blocks in the last 2 weeks of the season last year, Malley. So he's definitely able to bring it. I just don't know if we're going to be able to see him bring it this season. What are your thoughts on Peyton Watson?
Yeah, I've got just written here he doesn't do much through a fantasy lens. Look, if they didn't get Dario Saric, I would have been more keen on him this season. I just don't think they're going to need to use him as much now, and they're just going to again bring him along nice and slow. Maybe next season. Come and ask me this in 24 months' time.
Yep,
No, 12 months' time. 2 years. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, okay, you're putting a lot of time on him then. Fair enough.
That's a nice big break.
Yeah, absolutely. But I will say, I still think if Aaron Gordon goes down, he will step into those minutes like he did last season. So he can be definitely streamable for those defensive stats. Hopefully, we can see a bit more of a step forwards as well with Watson. I'm not going to draft him, but if I hear Aaron Gordon's out for a significant amount of time, I'll be having a crack at at Peyton Watson. That's for certain.
And all I've got here for Dario Saric is what I said to you before. The system works well for him. I've said he can do Joker things while Joker sits. He has a serial killer haircut, but he's a Balkan brother. He's another man from the Balkans that they can talk about horse racing or whatever weird jazz goes over in the Balkans. So good on him.
Yep, they can do their 3 kisses on the cheek as well, like him and Bobby do, which I am a big fan of. We got our last segment that we're going to crack into, though, Malley, and that is our ADP battle. And this one feels yucky, but I think we need to talk about it. And that is Michael Porter, shoot everything I got my hands on, Junior, versus Brandon Miller, who are getting taken around the same spots in drafts. Me personally, I will have that swing on Brandon Miller before I go Michael Porter Jr. I feel like it's just his scoring ability, his rebounding ability. I feel like he just has a bit more of an opportunity in Charlotte than what Michael Porter Jr. We know what we're getting out of him. It's going to be rebounds and it's going to be threes and a lot of them. If you can get a bit more consistency, yeah, I can see the point where you go, hey, if I'm going to have a crack at, let's say 85 in a draft or something like that, you got Porter and Miller both there and you need points. Yeah, I could probably bank on Porter Jr., but I feel like I'm more comfortable with taking everything that Brandon Miller can be other than what I've already seen from Michael Porter Jr. Where do you sit, Malley?
I think in a vacuum, I'd be with you. Like I'm looking at the comparative stats right now. So they both played about 32 minutes, like give or take a few seconds on the floor there. Their field goal percentage, Porter Jr.'s got him by 0.4. So we've got, he's a 48% shooter, where Brandon Miller last year in his rookie season was 44, not too terrible for a rookie. Michael Porter Jr., who you think of as a good shooter from the three, well, he is. He's a 39% shooter. So anything around that 40 mark, you're going to be very happy with, especially if that's a category in your fantasy league. Whereas, to my surprise, Brandon Miller is a 37% three-point shooter, and he was trying to put up nearly 7 of them last season. Free throw percentage, nearly exactly the same. Rebounds, well, Michael Porter's got him there. Assists, neither of them are that exciting, but Brandon's got him there. And the points that they actually put up, defensive numbers, don't worry about it because they're barely half of one each. If you're splitting hairs, you'd have to go with Miller. But with Porter last year, nearly 17 points, just under, and Brandon Miller was just over 17 points. So I think if you just ask me that question, who I would go with, I'd go with Miller. He's going in the second year. He's a high draft pick. He's a shiny new toy. But I think what really needs to be considered, and the reason I probably actually am going to edge a little bit towards Michael Porter. In fact, I've got Porter for 84 and I got Brandon Miller 85. So,
Oh
it's
my God.
it's going to be a flip of a coin. But
Yeah.
the thing you need to think about with Brandon Miller is he did that whole season without LaMelo Ball and Mark Williams. So that 4.3 rebounds, I don't think that's going much higher than that. When you're talking about those points, he's going to be the second guy, or last year at times, especially at the end when they'd given up, he was the first offensive option. I don't think he's going to cop it as bad as Bridges. I think Miles Bridges is the one who's really going to hurt from the return of Ball and Mark Williams. And I think my ranking has probably reflected that. But yes, if you ask me right now in the moment, give me Michael Porter Jr. And if you ask me this question probably after the All-Star break, I'll say, do you mind if I swap my answer?
Yeah, I think that's a good shout of being able to be able to take on that, Malley. I mean, look, yeah, he's going to be able to do it at certain points. That in talking about Michael Porter Jr. and yeah, he's going to actually have to step up as well, take a bit more threes, which he's going to love without KCP. So I can see that argument. I'm just going to bank on progression of Brandon Miller. And what else I'm banking on is putting this one in the bank, Malley. This was an awesome episode talking about the Denver Nuggets with you. I feel like we're going to be doing a lot more of these, mate. So that's going to be fantastic. If you guys would like to, make sure you like and subscribe at the Insight Fantasy Sports Network. All of our stuff that you can talk about NBA with us in the Discord. There's a link down there for that. You can follow me and Malley on Twitter, whatever, Skiddy IFS, Live My Fantasy. Ask us any questions that you like. We're more than happy to answer whatever we can. And all the best with everything, Malley. I'll see you in the next one, mate.
See you, brother.